Welcome to Reconcile the Kingdom, where we're working towards becoming in harmony of the whole word of truth. My name is PATRICE Robinson, and I appreciate you stopping by on today. We are here to just summarize the book of Exodus, the book of Shemot. We're not going to touch every topic and every chapter, but this is just a summary. The book of Exodus, Shemot, does not get its full credit as it deserves as the first assembly. Many Christians focus on the New Testament, not looking back to learn the life lessons that the first assembly has left us. Most people go to Antioch as the first church. Now, this is the first pagan people that assembled under the word church. That's Antioch. But they're not the first assembly, ecclesia. The first called out ones, the first assembly, the first gathering, the first community was the house of Israel in the wilderness. Moses, being the apostle sent by Jehovah to gather his people to bring them to the wilderness to worship and hold a feast with him. Moses had to go back and confront the very people he thought that he had left behind. He had thought that there would be no reason for him to return back there. Little did he know, Jehovah had a different plan for him. He had to face the children of Israel and Pharaoh and the Egyptians and demonstrate the power of the Holy Spirit to show that he is backed by Jehovah. He demonstrated this with the 10 plagues, his rod that turned into a snake, and his skin that he was able to turn to leprosy up on demand. Now, before I get ahead of myself, I think we should start with the beginning of Moses. If Moses can tell us, I should say, about his personal story, I'm sure he would say he would have never thought that he was where he was. Well, Moses didn't know that he was called and protected from birth. When his mother sent him along the river and was found by Pharaoh's daughter, he was called. He was taught by the finest education. He would learn the ways so that one day, he did not realize that he would return and he would know how to address, how to communicate with them. I thought about this. Why not the ones that was right in the trenches? Why not Aaron? Why not one of the elders? Why didn't Jehovah call them, who was right in the midst of that? This job was sent and designed for Moses. Exodus begins with how the children of Israel have multiplied and that brought fear upon the Egyptians. Well, it brought fear upon Pharaoh on about how they were growing and multiplying and that, one day they're going to join with our enemies and come against us. Pharaoh, who knew not Joseph, he enslaved the Hebrew people. I don't know why people think enslaving people is the answer to control, but for some reason they do. Moses was born at a time that there was an order for all newborn males of Hebrews was supposed to be killed. As we know, Jehovah had a plan for Moses. Moses' mother was only able to care for him for a short time before some Egyptian would find out that he exists. So she sent him out on the river Nile in the basket, only to be found by Pharaoh's daughter and followed by his sister. She took him in and she raised him with the finest education by the Egyptians. Moses must have been raised with the awareness of his people that he was a Hebrew, because he grew up and he visited his people and he killed an Egyptian, protecting his brother due to the mistreatment that he had witnessed. He had to flee because if the Hebrews knew about this, remember that part of the story, surely Pharaoh was aware, which is why he fled to and ran into the Medians. While he was living a life among the Midianites, and with his new family, his wife and his son and his in-laws, Jehovah decided it was time for him to visit his people. I personally had thoughts wondering how long has it been since Jehovah visited his people. Was it after Joseph's death? From there to visiting Moses? People talk about the silence from Malachi to Matthew, which is really not true, but we're not here for that today. But there clearly was hundreds of years of silence from the favor of Moses returning. He didn't, remember, Jehovah did not call the people that was in the midst of that. He called Moses. We spoke of many events in an introduction that occurred when Moses returned as the apostle sent to Jehovah's people in Egypt. So during the last plague, remember this, Jehovah teaches the congregation about his calendar, redemption, and his feast. Here Jehovah explains to Moses and Aaron that this will be the first month of the year. So his calendar was set from there. He provides instruction for the Passover meal and what to do with the blood that will save them from death. What a picture of redemption. Jehovah provided detail for his instruction for the Passover meal. Not only for that, but for unleavened bread. He even told them this is the reason why you should keep this throughout your generations. Because I brought you out of Egypt. He doesn't want the children of Israel to forget, ever to forget what he has done for them. He set them free from bondage. Now let's remember this. How Pharaoh, this is towards the last ending of the plague, death of the firstborn, and the firstborn of the Egyptians and their livestock. That's what made Pharaoh change his mind to release them. But then he changes his mind again and goes after them. Here we have the splitting of the Red Sea that leads Pharaoh and his soldiers to their grave, and the children of Israel to victory, and with a great song of praise to Jehovah. Jehovah continued to provide provision for his people by providing manna, quail, and water. With all this provision, there came their first test of keeping the Sabbath, the first instruction for the people. I want to say, making a lifestyle change into obeying and learning about the Torah, it takes a process. So don't beat yourself up if you're struggling. It takes a process to learn how to get ready and prepare for the Sabbath day before the Sabbath day comes. It takes planning and it takes all those things until you get used to it. So just don't beat yourself up right now. And if you feel like, oh, I'm not getting this, you're missing the spirit. So don't beat yourself. It takes time. Now, this part is what's interesting to me. This is interesting to me. I don't remember when I first realized this, but I remember the children of Israel left Egypt with great substance. So they left with food, clothes, jewelry, livestock, and much more. I don't know how to describe how these thoughts came into my head, but I realized they did not touch any of the livestock or any of the things until they decided to make a god with their own hands. They made an offering from the livestock that Jehovah blessed them with to a god that they made with their own hands, the golden calf. But prior to making the gold, with the gold jewelry to create this god of their hands, this golden calf, they met with Jehovah prior to this. And after Moses followed instructions for Jehovah for them to get ready for 3 days, he met with them because he was building his kingdom of priests, a holy nation, a covenant. So this mixed multitude, which includes the children of Israel and the strangers that joined with them, met at near Mount Sinai. So remember, this was the house of Israel that included a mixed multitude that came out of Egypt. They all heard the voice and began to give them instructions. His guide on how to live, how to be blessed. His covenant, he starts speaking to them about. However, they rejected him and they asked Moses to be the mediator. Moses tried to explain to them that there's no harm. Nothing will happen to you. He's just really testing you. They weren't having it. They're not having it. They could not hear him. Moses had to go up to the mount to get more instruction because the people stopped Jehovah and was unable to handle hearing anymore. So it didn't end at the 10. The 10 is when they just couldn't take it no more. This is where the people went wrong, and Aaron and Hur not been able to stand against the evil ways. So they made the golden calf. This did not end well for them. They decided to create this golden calf. When Moses came down and confronted them about all of this and who was going to stand for Jehovah and who wasn't, it didn't end well for those who decided, they're going to continue worshiping this golden calf, because 3,000 people were killed by the Levites. We also see that Moses had to atone for the people's sins. Moses even asked Jehovah to remove him out of the book, from the Lamb's Book of Life, in place of the children of Israel. Of course, Jehovah didn't honor that. He chooses who goes in the Lamb's Book of Life. Now, the Lamb's Book of Life is interesting because you don't hear about this book necessarily anymore until Revelation. So Moses knew about this book. I'm pretty sure this information was given to him by Jehovah. Being rejected, Jehovah still was able to give instructions to the people and made a way to dwell with the same people that rejected him. And he made a way to dwell without destroying them. I think we should remember that Exodus is just some of the instructions, because there's more instructions that you will find out through the book of Leviticus and Numbers, and you will find out more that Moses actually obtained from Jehovah. The best way to think of the instructions by following them, this is the best way of thinking this, that we're showing two things. We're showing that we're loving Jehovah with all our heart and soul, and we're loving our neighbors as ourselves. The building of the kingdom of priests, remember this is supposed to be a kingdom of priests, ended. So we ended up with one bloodline of priests, and that was Aaron's bloodline. The rest of the Levites were set apart to do other duties in the work in the tabernacle. Even after the rejection of the covenant, it still was confirmed, and Moses sprinkled the blood over all the people and on the book. Now this shows the mercy and grace of Jehovah. Besides the instructions on how to live, Moses was given instructions on building the tabernacle and the priestly garments. Towards the end of Exodus, the Bible tells us how every piece of the furniture of the tabernacle and the priestly garment was actually anointed by Moses, after carefully examining and inspecting the work of the tabernacle, was ready. And Jehovah told him when to erect the tabernacle. When the tabernacle was erected, Jehovah's glory filled the tabernacle. It was so filled that that Moses couldn't get past the door, like we spoke of last week. A point to point out, that same Holy Spirit that hovered over the waters in Genesis at the time of creation was given to Moses, given to the elders, and was given to the workmen to build the tabernacle in the priestly garments. So the Holy Spirit is all in the book of Exodus and then some. Did anyone notice, because I was thinking about this as I was, studying the Torah. I've been thinking about this. Did anyone notice that Moses acted as a priest to the children of Israel without giving it a title? He was sacrificing the animals for the children of Israel. He was doing all that work. Aaron and all them wasn't doing all that work. They didn't start their work until after they got anointed. But Moses been doing this work this entire time. Did anyone notice that? That Moses acted as a high priest, Jehovah being the king. Did you notice that? His bloodline, Moses' bloodline was not giving the bloodline to be the priest, to be the high priest. But Moses was playing that role. And Moses was also a Levite. The Bible doesn't explain why or don't point out why Moses' bloodline was not the high priest, since Moses was definitely in that role of doing a lot of the things that the priests would be doing. The Bible does not explain us why. But I was just thinking about this as I was reading about so much the work that Moses was doing. Remember, this is just a summary, and this is the first cycle of Exodus, and which I hope you enjoyed this first cycle. Next week, we are going to begin the first cycle of the book of Leviticus. My hope is that this will encourage you to read and study the Torah for yourself. Don't forget to join me on Saturday at 10 a.m. as we going through the series, A Kingdom of Covenants. And I will see you next Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. for the first cycle starting for the book of Levites. So have a blessed and wonderful rest of the week. Thank you.